It's just past midnight, September 26, 1983. Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov sits in a bunker south of Moscow, watching a wall of computer screens. He's been on duty for 3 hours. The air is stale. The coffee is weak. Another quiet night, monitoring satellites that watch for American nuclear launches. And then the alarm screams. The main display flashes red. A single word in Russian, Zabusk, launch. The computer system, OKO, the Soviet Union's early warning network, has detected an American intercontinental ballistic missile rising from a base in the United States, heading toward the Soviet Union. Petrov has seconds to decide. Report this up the chain as a real attack or declare it a false alarm. If he reports attack confirmed, the Soviet leadership will be notified, the General Secretary will be woken, the nuclear briefcase will be opened, Soviet missile forces will prepare to fire back before American warheads arrive. If he calls it false, and he's wrong, the Soviet Union will be hit without responding. Millions will perish. The motherland will fall. The protocol is clear. If the computer says launch, report launch. But something feels wrong. The computer is showing one missile, just one. Why would America launch one missile? The alarm is still screaming. His staff is staring at him, waiting for orders. He has less than 8 minutes before that missile, if it exists, reaches Soviet territory. Before the alarm, this was supposed to be routine. The command center sits in a reinforced bunker at Serapukov 15, a secret military facility about 60 miles south of Moscow. The room is cramped and dim, lit by the glow of computer terminals and overhead fluorescent tubes that flicker occasionally. The ventilation hums constantly. The air smells like electronics and cigarette smoke. He's Petrov's duty officer for OKO, the Eye, the Soviet Union's early warning network. His job's to monitor feeds from satellites positioned in geostationary orbit, watching the United States for the infrared signature of missile launches. If those satellites see something that looks like a launch, the data flows here, to this room, to Petrov's console. His responsibility is straightforward: verify the alert and report it immediately to Soviet High Command. He does not analyze, he does not interpret, he confirms and reports. Because in nuclear war, time is everything. An American ICBM launched from the Midwest will cross the Arctic and reach Moscow in approximately 25 minutes. A submarine-launched missile from closer range could arrive in 10 minutes or less. That means Soviet leadership needs to know about an attack the moment it happens. Every second of warning matters. Every second gives them a chance to authorize a counterstrike before Soviet missile sites are destroyed. The Soviet Union's nuclear strategy is built on this principle: launch on warning. If the Americans fire, the Soviets fire back immediately, before the incoming warheads hit, before the leadership is vaporized, before the country is paralyzed. For this strategy to work, the early warning system must be trusted absolutely. When OKO says launch detected, the assumption is that it's real. Petrov knows this. He's been trained on this. He's 44 years old, a lieutenant colonel with years of experience in Soviet air defense forces. He helped design parts of the OKO system. He knows how it works. He knows how it can fail. And that knowledge is about to matter more than anything else in his life. He glances at the clock on the wall. 0014, 14 minutes past midnight. His shift runs until 8 a.m., 7 more hours. He takes a sip of tea. It's lukewarm. He leans back in his chair. The room is quiet except for the hum of electronics and the occasional murmur of technicians checking equipment. And then Every screen in front of him turns red. To understand the weight of this moment, the context must be clear. It is September 1983. The Cold War is not cold. It is ice-breaking, sharp, and terrifyingly close to hot. 3 weeks ago, Soviet fighters shot down Korean Airlines Flight 007 after it strayed into Soviet airspace. 269 people perished. The world is outraged. The United States calls it murder. President Reagan calls the Soviet Union an evil empire. Tensions are at levels not seen since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Both sides have thousands of nuclear weapons aimed at each other. Both sides have early warning systems designed to detect a surprise attack. Both sides have strategies that call for immediate retaliation. And both systems depend on one critical assumption: the sensors are accurate. Here's how the Soviet chain works. Step 1. OGO satellites detect what looks like a missile launch, a bright infrared plume from rocket exhaust. Step 2. That data is transmitted to ground stations and analyzed by computer systems for authentication. Is this a real launch signature? Does it match known missile profiles? Is it located at a known American launch site? Step 3. If the system confirms launch detected, that alert arrives here at Serapukov 15, where Petrov sits. Step 4. Petrov's job is to verify the data and report it immediately to Soviet High Command, the General Secretary, the Defense Ministry, ultimately to General Secretary Yuri Andropov. Step 5. Soviet leadership assesses the threat. If they believe the attack is real, they can authorize a counterstrike. Orders are transmitted to Soviet strategic rocket forces. Missiles are unlocked. Launch sequences begin. The entire process, from satellite detection to Soviet missiles leaving the ground, can happen in under 15 minutes. 15 minutes. That's the window. Now here's the problem. The system is designed to be fast, not cautious, not skeptical. Fast. Because in nuclear war, hesitation could mean losing the ability to respond. If Soviet leaders wait to confirm the attack, they might wait too long. American warheads might arrive and destroy Soviet missile fields before those missiles can fire back. Command centers might be obliterated. Communication networks might be cut. Launch on warning solves this problem. Fire back immediately, while the incoming missiles are still in flight, before they arrive. But this strategy has a terrifying flaw. It depends entirely on the early warning system being right. If the satellites see something that isn't there, if the computers misinterpret data, if a sensor glitches, and that false information is trusted, then the Soviet Union might launch nuclear weapons at an attack that never happened. And once Soviet missiles are in the air, the United States will see them on radar, and the United States will assume they're under attack. And then it doesn't matter whether the first alarm was real or fake. The war happens anyway. Petrov knows all this. He's read the briefings. He's run the drills. He's seen how fast the system moves once an alert is confirmed. And right now, the system is screaming at him to confirm. The satellite has detected a launch. The computer has authenticated it. The protocol says, report immediately. But Petrov is staring at his screen, and something doesn't add up. One missile. The computer is showing one American ICBM. Just one.
The alarm is piercing, a repeating electronic tone that cuts through every other sound in the bunker. Red lights flash on the main console. The words on the screen are unambiguous. Missile launch detected. Confidence maximum. Origin United States. Petrov's heart is pounding. His staff, 3 junior officers and 2 technicians, are frozen, staring at him, waiting for him to act. He looks at the display. The satellite is tracking a single infrared signature rising from U.S. territory. The computer has cross-referenced the location with known ICBM sites. The trajectory is headed toward the Soviet Union. Everything about the alert looks legitimate. The authentication codes are correct. The signature matches a Minuteman ICBM profile. The confidence level is maximum. The protocol is screaming at him. Pick up the phone. Report to High Command, now. But Petrov's brain is moving in a different direction. One missile makes no sense. If the United States is launching a nuclear first strike, if they're trying to destroy the Soviet Union before it can respond, they wouldn't fire one missile. They would fire everything, hundreds of missiles, a coordinated wave designed to overwhelm Soviet defenses and obliterate command centers, missile fields, submarine bases. One missile is either a malfunction, a test gone wrong, or a provocation. It's not an attack. But the computer doesn't think. The computer sees a launch signature and reports, missile detected. Petrov reaches for the phone that connects directly to Soviet High Command. His hand is shaking. He lifts the receiver halfway, then stops. If he makes this call, if he says American launch confirmed, the Soviet military will mobilize. Missile forces will go on alert. The General Secretary will be woken and told the United States has fired. And Andropov, already paranoid, already convinced the Americans might strike first, will have minutes to decide whether to authorize retaliation. Petrov knows the political climate right now. 3 weeks after the Korean airliner incident, Soviet leadership is expecting the worst. If he reports this as real, they might believe him. They might launch. And if this is a false alarm, if there is no American missile, then Petrov will have triggered a nuclear war over a computer error. He sets the phone down. One of his staff officers speaks up. "Comrade Lieutenant Colonel, the system shows maximum confidence. We must report." Petrov doesn't answer. He's staring at the screen, his mind racing. The OCO system is new. It was rushed into service. Petrov knows this because he worked on parts of it. The satellites are sophisticated, but they're not perfect. The computer analysis is automated, but it can be fooled. What if the satellites saw something else? Sunlight reflecting off clouds, a high-altitude explosion, a calibration error. What if this is exactly the kind of glitch the system was designed to catch, but the computer doesn't know how to recognize it? The alarm is still screaming. Petrov looks at the clock. 0016. 1 minute since the alert. If the missiles are real, they should be already past the boost phase. It's arcing through space towards Soviet territory. In 24 minutes, it will arrive. He has to decide, right now. He picks up the phone. But he doesn't call High Command. He calls the satellite monitoring station. "This is Serpakov 15. Confirm your data. Are you receiving corroborating signals from ground radar?" There's a pause. "Negative. Ground radar shows nothing." Petrov's chest tightens. Ground-based radar should have picked up the missile by now if it's real. The fact that radar sees nothing means either the missile doesn't exist or it's flying a trajectory the radar can't track yet. Which means the satellite could be right, or it could be wrong. He's still holding the phone. His staff is staring at him. The alarm is still screaming. And then the screen updates. A second launch indicator appears. Now the computer is showing 2 American missiles. Petrov feels his blood go cold. Then a third, a fourth, a fifth. 5 missiles. All launching within seconds of each other. All from the United States. All headed toward the Soviet Union. His deputy leans over. "Comrade Lieutenant Colonel, multiple launches confirmed. This is a coordinated attack. We must report." Petrov stares at the screen. 5 missiles. Still not enough. If the United States is launching a real first strike, if they're trying to destroy the Soviet Union before it can respond, they wouldn't fire 5 missiles. They would fire everything. Hundreds of missiles. a coordinated wave designed to overwhelm Soviet defenses and obliterate command centers, missile fields, submarine bases. 5 missiles is a strange number. Too many to be an accident, too few to be an attack. Unless the computer is malfunctioning, unless the satellite is seeing one false signature and the system is multiplying it, unless this entire alert is a cascade failure. Petrov makes his decision. He picks up the phone to High Command. The line connects immediately. This is Serpukhov 15. We have detected launch indicators from United States territory. There's a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Confirmed? Petrov closes his eyes. He says the words that violate every protocol he's been trained to follow. No, not confirmed. Assess this as system malfunction. I am not reporting this as an attack. Silence. You are certain? I am certain this does not match attack doctrine. Ground radar shows negative. Confidence is low. I assess false alarm. Another pause. Understood. Continue monitoring. Report any changes immediately. The line disconnects. Petrov sets the phone down. His hand is shaking. His shirt is soaked through with sweat. He just told Soviet High Command to disregard an alert from the most advanced early warning system in the Soviet Union. He just bet the survival of his country and his own life on his gut feeling that the computer is wrong. If he's right, nothing happens. The system resets. The alarm stops. If he's wrong, American nuclear warheads are about to hit Soviet territory in less than 20 minutes, and the Soviet Union will have no warning, no time to respond, no retaliation. The entire strategy of launch on warning collapses because one officer didn't trust the machine. Petrov sits back in his chair. The alarm is still ringing. The screen still shows 5 missiles inbound. And all he can do is wait. The minutes crawl. Petrov watches the clock. 0017, 0018, 0019. If the missiles are real, they should be visible on ground radar by now. The tracking stations across the Soviet Union should be lighting up with incoming objects. He picks up the phone again. Radar stations, report status. Serpukhov 15, this is Station 7. We have nothing on scope. Clear skies. Station 12, negative contact. No inbound detected. Station 3, all clear. Nothing. The ground radar sees nothing. But the satellite still shows 5 missiles. The computer still insists. Maximum confidence. Missile launch confirmed. One of Petrov speaks up quietly. Comrade Lieutenant Colonel, if the computer is right and we do nothing, then we all burn, Petrov says flatly. I know. He's thinking about his family, his wife, his son. They're sleeping in Moscow right now, less than 100 kilometers away. If American warheads are coming, they'll be among the first targets. He's thinking about his career. If he's wrong, he won't be court-martialed. He'll be shot. Failing to report an American nuclear attack is treason. There's no ambiguity. The penalty is execution. He's thinking about the world. If he reports this as real, and Soviet leadership believes him, they'll launch. And the United States will see Soviet missiles rising, and they'll fire back. And within an hour, hundreds of millions of people will be gone. The weight of it is crushing. One decision, his decision. Everything balanced on whether he trusts a computer or his instincts. 0020. If the missiles were real, they should be halfway to Soviet territory by now. 0022. The alarm is still screaming. The screen hasn't changed. 5 missiles, maximum confidence. 0025. Ground radar still sees nothing. 0028. If the missiles were real, they would impact in less than 10 minutes. Soviet air defense would be scrambling, radar would be tracking, the entire Western military district would be in chaos. But there's only silence. No updates, no confirmations. 0030. 14 minutes since the first alarm. And then finally,
14 minutes since the first alarm. And then, finally, the screen changes. The launch indicators disappear, one by one. The red alerts fade. The alarm stops. The computer displays a single line of text: system error, false alarm. Petrov exhales. He realizes he's been holding his breath. His deputy sits down heavily. The satellite was wrong. The computer was wrong. There were no American missiles. There was no attack. It was a malfunction, a glitch, sunlight reflecting off high-altitude clouds, most likely. The satellite mistook the reflection for the infrared signature of a missile launch. The computer, trusting the satellite, authenticated it as real, and the system, designed to be fast, designed to trust the sensors, reported it as an attack. If Petrov had followed protocol, Soviet High Command would have been told the United States launched 5 ICBMs at the Soviet Union. In the current political climate, with tensions already at breaking point, there's a very real chance Soviet leadership would have believed it, would have ordered retaliation, and the world would have ended because sunlight hit a cloud at the wrong angle. Petrov sits in silence for a long moment. Then he reaches for his tea. It's cold now. He drinks it anyway. His shift has 6 more hours to go. He picks up a pen and begins filling out the incident report. Equipment malfunction. Satellite false alarm. Stand down issued at 0030. Clinical. Procedural. Like nothing happened. But his hands are still shaking. At 8 a.m., Petrov's shift ends. He walks out of the bunker into the cool September morning. The sky is clear and blue. Birds are singing. Life continues, oblivious. He drives home. He doesn't tell his wife what happened. He can't. It's classified. Everything that happens in Serpukhov 15 is classified. He takes off his uniform. He lies down. He tries to sleep. He can't. He keeps replaying the moment, the red screen, the alarm, the choice. What if he'd been wrong? What if there really had been missiles and he'd dismissed them? What if American warheads had hit Moscow while he sat there doing nothing? What if he'd been right to doubt but his superiors hadn't listened? What if they'd launched anyway? Over the next few days, the incident is investigated quietly. The technical failure is identified. The satellite system misinterpreted sunlight. The computer's authentication algorithms had a flaw. They were too trusting of satellite data, not skeptical enough. The system is updated. New protocols are added. The flaw is corrected. But Petrov is not celebrated. He's not promoted. He's not honored. Instead, he's questioned. Why didn't he follow protocol? Why did he decide the computer was wrong? What gave him the authority to overrule the system? His superiors are not grateful. They're uncomfortable. Because Petrov's decision exposes an ugly truth. The early warning system they've built, the system that Soviet nuclear strategy depends on, nearly started a war over a reflection. And worse, the only reason it didn't start a war was because one officer broke the rules. That's not a story the Soviet military wants to tell. It's not a story that makes the system look reliable. It's not a story that inspires confidence in launch-on-warning strategy. So the story is buried, classified, sealed away. Petrov continues his work for a while, but the incident follows him. He's transferred. Eventually, he retires quietly from military service. No medals, no commendations, no recognition. For years, almost no one outside the Soviet military knew what happened on September 26, 1983. Petrov lived a quiet life. He worked as a technical consultant. He tended a small garden. He does not speak about that night. It's only years later,
after the Cold War ends, after the Soviet Union collapses, that the story begins to emerge. Journalists find records. Former officers speak. Petrov, reluctant, confirms what happened. And the world realizes how close it came. Not because of aggression, not because of war, because of a satellite glitch and a few seconds of sunlight hitting clouds at the wrong angle. The only thing standing between humanity and nuclear war was one man's decision to distrust a computer. Stanislav Petrov passed away in 2017, at 77 years old, in a small apartment outside Moscow. By the time of his passing, the world knew his name. He'd been interviewed, honored by international organizations, called the man who saved the world. But in Russia, he remained largely unknown. No state honors, no official recognition. The Russian government never acknowledged what he did, because acknowledging it would mean admitting the system failed, admitting that launch-on warning nearly caused a global catastrophe, admitting that nuclear command depends on individual humans making the right choice when the machines are wrong. And that's the lesson of September 26, 1983. The systems we've built – early warning satellites, automated threat analysis, launch-on warning protocols – are designed to be fast, to respond in minutes, to retaliate before incoming weapons arrive. But speed is the enemy of accuracy. The faster the system, the less time there is to question, to verify, to think. And when the system makes a mistake, when sensors glitch, when computers misinterpret data, when false alarms cascade through the chain, there's almost no time for a human to catch the error before it's too late. Petrov had minutes, not hours, minutes to decide whether to trust a computer showing maximum confidence or trust his gut feeling that something was wrong. He chose his gut. And he was right. But what if he'd been tired? What if he'd been less experienced? What if he'd been replaced that night by someone who trusted the machine more than their instincts? What if he'd simply followed protocol the way he was trained? The world would have ended. Not because anyone wanted war, not because of strategy or politics or hatred, because of sunlight and clouds and a computer that couldn't tell the difference. And here's what should keep everyone awake at night. This wasn't the only time. In 1979, a training tape at NORAD made it look like 200 Soviet missiles were inbound. Bombers prepared to launch. The alert was canceled with minutes to spare. In 1980, a faulty computer chip showed 2,200 Soviet missiles. Again, the alert was false. In 1995, Russia nearly launched because of a Norwegian weather rocket. We are here today because of individuals. People who questioned the machines. People who hesitated when the protocol said to act. People who were willing to bet their lives, their careers, their countries on the belief that the data didn't make sense. The systems haven't gotten slower. They've gotten faster, more automated, more dependent on sensors and algorithms. And the weapons are still there, thousands of them, still ready, still waiting for the signal. How many more Petrovs do we need? How many more times can we roll the dice and hope someone catches the error? Stanislav Petrov didn't think of himself as a hero. In interviews, he was uncomfortable with the title. He said he was just doing his job, making the best decision he could with the information he had. But his job was impossible. His decision was impossible. The system put him in a position where he had minutes to choose between trusting a computer and trusting himself, knowing that either choice could end the world. He chose correctly, by instinct, by experience, by luck, and the world continued. Most people went about their day on September 26, 1983, never knowing how close they came, never knowing that somewhere south of Moscow, one man stood between them and annihilation. Petrov knew. The people in that bunker knew. and they went back to work the next day. Because someone has to watch the screens. Someone has to monitor the satellites. Someone has to be ready to make the impossible choice. That's the job. Right now. Today. The systems are still running. The weapons are still armed. The protocols are still designed for speed over certainty. And somewhere, someone is watching a screen. Waiting. Hoping the alarm never sounds. Hoping that if it does, they'll make the right choice.